Welcome to the Digital Marketing Podcast, brought to you by targetinternet.com. Hello and welcome back to the Digital Marketing Podcast. My name is Kieran Rogers.
I'm Louise Crossley.
And I'm Daniel Rolls.
And today we are asking, is content marketing dead?
No, it's not. Thank you very much for listening to the Digital Marketing Podcast. No, actually, okay. Let's say where this one came from, really. Das Dowding, who is a listener of the podcast, after we did a previous one from Australia as well. Did a previous episode, and we had talked about 10x content, and we kind of obviously credited Rand with it coming up with this 10x content thing ages ago. And she went, well, yeah, but Rand has since come out and said that he doesn't think it really works anymore. So I just want to read you the quote. So he's asked, does 10x content still work? The idea you can do exceptional content, it will stand out, it will create all those great signals that the Google algorithm is looking for. And Rand came out and said, when he was asked about this, said, God, I wish I could say yes. I wish the answer was yes. But if you look at what does well and what's popular, you'll see it's not 10x, right? So I think it would be disingenuous to recommend that as a tactic. It used to be a really good way to outrank your competition at Google, producing things that were way better quality, way more in depth, way more data, way more richness, way better visualized. All those kinds of things used to drive a lot better rankings in search. That's not the case anymore. Now, it's a really, and it is a valid point, because I do this exercise in the training calls where I say, go and find the 5 best bits of content that are out there. And everyone comes out and says, yeah, but the 5 best bits of content aren't at the top of Google. Like, we've had to go all sorts of different levels to find this stuff. And the problem kind of is that the Google ranking factors, whatever they may be, aren't necessarily putting what's best at top. They're kind of, because of the fact of like domain authority, and it's not just about links, but a trusted website that's had millions of visitors for years and years and years and has millions of links coming through to it. When they publish something, that seems to outweigh a lot of the user signals in terms of how long people are staying on that content and the engagement it seems to have and all that kind of stuff as well. And to some extent, there's only so much Google can do in terms of understanding that content. But it is true that it's not always the very best stuff that's at the top of Google. Now, I'm still going to argue that that approach can work well if you combine it with some other factors. You know, making something exceptional, making a great user experience. We should still focus on that. But this sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole. And I was watching some other videos that Rand has produced. And Rand, thank you. And we're going to promote SparkToro a fair bit in this, because as a thank you for kind of taking us down this kind of rabbit hole as well. And actually, SparkToro, Rand's tool and website, is actually a bit of a solution to this as well. But basically, Rand was arguing 2 things. One about a zero-click world. And this is reflective of what we all do. Saying the social platforms have algorithms now that actively encourage you not to add links to your posts. They'll actually give posts less visibility if they have outbound links, because they want you to stay on the platform and consume more content and consume more advertising, right? That's what they want. But actually, there's a user behavior piece to this as well. If I'm in LinkedIn, I can't be bothered to click to an external website. If I'm in anywhere else, I can't be bothered to link somewhere else to read something. Very often, not always.
What does that say about the state of recruitment in the world right now?
LinkedIn is not about recruitment. I will have you. How dare you, sir? I'm a huge fan of LinkedIn. Do you know what? It's interesting with LinkedIn. That's where we get most of our engagement, really positive engagement. And I was speaking to Kelvin from Brighton SEO, and he was saying this year, the first year, because Brighton SEO was kind of launched on Twitter. It was a huge thing. And he said, it's dead on Twitter now. It's just all LinkedIn, the engagement. And this was the year that kind of proved it. So I have nothing said against LinkedIn. Well, there is a lot of dross stuff on there. But
it is great for recruiting, though. And you too can
recruit also good
people that can't actually be bothered to click. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying.
Well, I think there's this thing of actually just we've become quite lazy in the way that we use social platforms. So from the point of view of, we're in TikTok, we're doom scrolling, we're in Reels, we're doing the same thing. We're going through LinkedIn, and it's like we are expecting bite-sized content, but the fact is that it is a bit of a zero-click world now, as Rand says, because 70% of clicks through to websites, roughly, according to the data they have from SparkToro, are coming from search engines. But we're not spending 70% of our time on search engines. We're spending most of our time consuming media on social websites and YouTube and podcasts and all that kind of stuff as well.
And I think now it's about 40% of all searches that are done on social media platforms anyway.
Okay, so that's a really interesting one as well. That fills me with horror as well. In that, depends what you search. If you're searching for fashion or you're searching for, health and fitness, but if you're searching for news, I find that really disturbing. But let's not go down that. But I mean, more of the fact that actually, if search is driving the traffic, but we're spending our time elsewhere, what it kind of shows us is this zero-click behavior is part of it. The algorithms are part of it. AI results are part of it, where you go to the search engine, you get your answer, you don't need to click on anything as well. So it's user behavior, it's algorithms, it's AI results. So it means we're just not clicking. Well, if you don't click, then it's very hard for me to work out that you saw this social stuff, this media, this content, or you listened to the podcast, and then you went through and did something. Podcasting is particularly challenging for this because I can forever say, go to targetinternet.com/podcast for the show notes. And people are like, yeah, I'm all right, cheers. I'm listening to a podcast. I'm not going to do that. So, and realistically, there will be a handful that do, but it's going to be we know that, 100,000 odd listeners each time. And actually, it's a tiny percentage that end up on the website. I mean, it's brilliant that they do.
I just want to give a shout out to those people that have. We love you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Put a lot of work into those. They're really good.
So, and go to targetinternet.com and sign up immediately. It's that whole piece of, okay, that's the real behavior. That's the realistic thing, which means that actually attribution modeling and attribution becomes nonsense. Right. So tell us the story, anonymize it, but tell us the story that you told us just before we came on this.
So I'm just going to chip in my 5 pennies worth.
Go on then.
And I want to start it by saying, Rand, I love you. I love your work. But
Rand, I also want to say, Rand, before you came on the call, he was saying Rand has got much more handsome as he's got older. he's a silver fox.
He is. He's just grown. Let's not go into that. But yeah,
okay.
Some men don't age well, do they? But I think Rand is one of those.
There's 2 middle-aged men on this call. Be gentle.
I'm looking at you. Looking at you on the podcasting app right now. Yeah, and you age well as well.
I wonder where that was going then. I was quite nervous then.
I feel like you backtracked then.
Yeah, so do I. I think there was a lot of backtracking going on.
Maybe a little bit.
Anyway, go on.
Yeah, you've got to survive, haven't you? Got to survive. So I just think the danger is that maybe there's a danger of Rand throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Like, because I granted, and actually it's not a criticism because actually I get where you're coming from on it, Rand. Like, it's not what you think it is basically what you're saying. But I do still believe that good content does do well. What's interesting though is I think there's so many more variables now in how Google ranks stuff, right? So if you've got a lot of competition in quite a niche space or even quite a popular space, actually, the more competition there is, I think Google will behave in different ways. I'm certainly still seeing plenty of evidence that user behavior gets results.
Well, I still think that dwell time, scrolling.
Not only that, when you have a page that's ranking really well, very often it's because it has a really good hook. It's not because you outperform all the competition in that space with backlinks, blah blah blah.
You think it's just because
you've got a really, really good click. I was looking at some data for a campaign. It was just like a free diagnostic test, right? And the results this SEO team had through promoting a free diagnostic test were off the charts. Like in 6 months, they've gone from like 0 searches to like 1.4 million kind of views and kind of 24,000 clicks. To go from nothing to that in such a short period. And all they'd actually done is they just put the word free next to the keyword everybody was searching for this diagnostic test. And they'd also followed, some of the other things we recommend you do. So, putting your keyword into the URL, putting it into the page title, putting it into the H1 tag. Yeah, old school, but simple things. And actually, in this instance, where it's quite a niche term, but there's a lot of people searching for that diagnostic test, it was having phenomenal results. And there's no way they have more backlinks and stuff, but they do have a lot of traffic, and their click-through rate was very, very high. I could see that because they shared with me their Google Search Console results. There's a lot of wiggle room for variables within this.
Search Console has done a thing now where they give you like a highlight summary when you go in there, and it says you got 20,000 views a month, 30,000, 40,000. And then it will show you top content, and they'll have little badges, high dwell time. So they are they are seeing that as important. So I still think, look, great content that drives engagement is never going to be a bad thing. It will help with search rankings. It will help with user engagement and so on as well. But with the attribution side of things, tell us that story that you told us.
Yes, sorry, I digressed.
That's quite right.
So a team that I've been working with were doing like a social media campaign. They haven't advertised on social media for ages, and the campaign went out to Instagram and a little bit on Facebook as well. And the results really astounded us in that, we were getting a lot of engagement, and actually the cost per acquisition, as an e-commerce site, cost per acquisition was way lower than I've seen it in the past. Like, I know previously they'd had problems with their acquisition costs being like £38-45 when their average order value is much lower than that. Like, that's bad. You don't ever want to see that.
It's not a good way to run a business.
It's how you lose money hand over fist. So they sort of turned their back on social media advertising as a result of that. But time's gone on, and they're looking to have another crack at it. So they did, and they've used some much more modern ad units to what they were using, and they got these quite impressive results, and they're really cheap cost per clicks, etc., etc. But what was really interesting is the revenue shot up, like it doubled overnight when this campaign started running. So they were a little bit like, well, it can't be that, because we've got the pixel set up and we've got all the tracker set up, and we're just not seeing that level of sales coming through the social media campaign. Like, what could it be? And there really wasn't any answers. We did lots of digging, and they couldn't find an answer to it. Actually, what their account manager did was he turned the advert off.
I love
for
that.
24 hours.
The best way of testing. Is it having an impact to switch off?
I know. It was a ballsy move, because the revenue shot down from like £3,000 a day to like £600-700 a day.
Right.
And it's like, could it be that, or is that just a bad day? So turn it back on, and sure enough, revenue shot back up. Right. So I mean, we've known for a long time that people see stuff, and actually, some of these channels can be fantastic at getting impressions out there. But people clock it; they don't necessarily click. So that's always been a problem, particularly with display campaigns, for example. Right? You see billboard advertising all the time. You can't click on it because it's the other side of the street, but you clock it. And, you're thinking about, whatever washing powder or clothing brand or whatever it is that's being promoted to you, it kind of gets under your skin, doesn't it? And I think there's an element of that. It's that, but you've got an amazing way of like getting in front of the right audience. It's not like a billboard where everybody sees it and you're sort of paying for a share of everybody's eyeballs. You can target with this stuff. But the truth of the matter is, even with, all Meta's great work that they've done and improving their pixel and the accuracy of that, there's still just this massive missing gap. But it just doesn't make sense to me. But I don't quite understand why it's happening.
Well, let's talk about
that. But it's definitely happening because I'm seeing it.
Some simple things, right? So one, multi-device journeys. You're seeing a thing on one device. You're not logged into Facebook on both of them, or you're not logged into Google on both of them, so you can't track across the devices. The loss of cookies, where we're not getting those third-party cookies. But also, if you've got an ad blocker, it might be that it's blocking you actually going through and tracking into analytics. Opt-ins, where people are going to websites, they're not opting for the cookies increasingly, and you're finding that you're not able to track them through to websites. That doesn't work for analytics as well. If there is no click-through, if you never clicked, you've just got a view of that particular ad, then it may be you certainly can't track it through to your web analytics. It may show up within the analytics for Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that as well. So if you look at all those factors, it looks like if there's no click-through, someone just arrived from thin air on your website. They've just suddenly magically appeared. But actually, we all know that everything we do every day is being influenced by what we're engaging with, what people say to us. The problem with all of this as well is that you go, well, they saw the ad and they didn't click, but then we got some search traffic, so it must have been the ad. It might have only been they took any notice of the ad because their friend spoke to them about it in the pub the night before. So I always try and say to people, and I always quote you, Kieran, saying we're trying to measure the least wrong thing.
Yeah, it's very true.
And actually, quite often, it means that we don't really know. And there isn't, and you can't untangle the human brain. I mean, we can't map at the moment the neural networks in our brain and how they work and what's triggering them. And maybe we'll be able to do that in the future. So what it means, and what Rand said, and this really resonates to me, he said, well, marketing in 24 is like marketing in 1964 kind of thing. In that, think about how advertising used to work. You'd come up with an incredible concept, something that really resonated with your target audience, the kind of Mad Men era. And you would come up with this thing and you'd get it in the right place for the right people at the right time. And they would see it and then they would go and buy your product in the shop. So they'd see the TV ad and they'd go and buy it. You kind of, in a way, need to start thinking a little bit like that. But then you think, well, take a really journalistic approach. If you're going to write some content, you wouldn't read a newspaper where they were writing articles going, yeah, I think that there's something going on somewhere. It's like they've gone off and they've researched it. And the barrier to entry to writing a newspaper is that you've got the distribution, that kind of stuff. But it's the journalists, it's the investigative journalists, it's the people that are on the ground looking at things. It's all that, it's that research. So there should be a barrier to you creating your content. If it took you 3 minutes to create your content in ChatGPT, I'm pretty sure anyone could do that. So there's not much value. PR becomes important, public relations, the idea that there are people talking about your stuff. They're mentioning it in places, whether that's TV, magazine, website, suddenly PR becomes. Now, we've got an interview coming up that I'm going to record next week with a digital PR company. And they're saying, how does digital PR differ from PR? What's its role in search optimization? Because I think it's a really powerful area at the moment, getting people speaking about you. Now, it's no different. That's no difference to influencer marketing. It's just that the influencers here are magazine editors or TV channel executives or someone that owns a website, really.
It is different in that you've got people that actually have influence.
Well, I would say that that's how influencer marketing should work. I'm not even going to get you going on this. They're word of mouth. I want people talking about my stuff. How am I going to get them to actually talk about it, to care about it enough? We found really interesting for us. So if you don't know, we have taken our our learning platform, targetinternet.com, and we've started, just as part of that, you get a free masterclass every month. This is a half-day online course. So for 20 quid a month, you get the whole platform and you're getting half-a-day training, which is crazy value. But people are like, wow, that's pretty full. And they started people talking about it and they're telling and they're recommending it to each other as well. So actually that for us has been the little word of mouth piece that's really started things to work. That's
the goal though, isn't it? Like that's gold dust.
Yeah.
Like advocates, people online and offline talking about your brand that you've actually not influenced or paid them to do.
Exactly.
But they're just so loyal to you and love your product that much.
Yeah, and that's what amplifies stuff, and that's what we've started seeing. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't even know this person, didn't even know they were doing this stuff, but they're suddenly telling all their friends to do it as well.
Right. I mean, I've always looked at the literal meaning of the phrase remark. Like if something is remarkable, it's because it's so good that you actually comment.
You remark on it, yeah.
You remark on it, right? And I think sometimes we forget that. But that's really what we're talking about here. And actually, so, okay, Rand, Google's algorithm is ignoring a lot of remarkable content out there because it's looking maybe at other metrics in certain spaces, and that's by and by. But do you remember the whole world isn't about digital. That whole word of mouth thing is massive. Years ago I worked at Lizelle, amazing British beauty company, and they never did any advertising, not for years and years and years. Like first 15 years, advertising wasn't allowed. What they wanted to do was to ensure, okay, the money normally a beauty company would spend in advertising, we're going to spend it on rewarding our customers. Right, so loads of gift with product and gift with purchase and unexpected gifts. And
it was that unexpected gifts. I remember this.
It was. And the word of mouth was off the charts. Like that was where all of our customers were coming from. Our customers so loved what we did. The products were very good and to this day still are, right? But, that was how it works. This is really good. They recommended it. And that took on a life of its own. We once did a thing where we looked to find the most influential customer. And it was a little old lady in a street in Manchester somewhere. And we invited her to a glitzy event. And she thought there'd been a horrible mistake because I don't really buy much, really. And we were like, oh, no, there's no mistake at all. You've actually recommended us to so many people in your area. We actually charted, we showed her the map with all the pins and all the different people that she'd introduced. And it was off the charts good. And she was really astounded.
Well, it's like that 1,000 Truth Answering, right? Rather than trying to get 1 million followers, just one at a time, try and work out the advocates are. Yeah. I've worked out now as well. If you said to me you can spend £10 on paid search or you can spend £10 on giving people merchandise, I'll give them merchandise. Because people are like, oh, look, I've got a mug, I've got a memory stick, I've got a sticker, whatever it is. And actually, there's a little bit of a delight in there as well. Yeah. That was Jay Swedelson. That was his thing. The thing at Inbound, just giving away tons of T-shirts and stickers. It was a frenzy. I mean, literally, like it was the biggest thing that happened at Inbound, and it was just freebies.
I'll never forget Kelvin's stunt with the gun that launched T-shirts into the audience.
That T-shirt gun was invariably a disaster because it just wouldn't work most of the time, and it would shoot things like into the front row. But it was a good thing. We talked about it in the podcast interview with him recently.
That's why as well, when you see someone talking about your brand online, you should never ignore it. Because if someone talks about your brand online and generates you, however many views they have, if you then, even as simple as sending them some like free merchandise, or you invite them into their head office, like everyone has an ego and they want to share stuff, don't they? And it's really cool. So they're going to share that, and then people are going to look at that and say, this is what can happen if I talk about that brand online.
So why wouldn't you want to really reward people that think you're remarkable?
Yeah,
because that's what we're talking about here. So no, I'm all on board with that.
Well, we did a simple thing. We said if you review the podcast, so targetinternet.com/review, you take a photo of it and we'll send you some merchandise. Just as a thank you, good or bad review, whatever you leave us. And I think like a load of tens and tens of people did it. It wasn't hundreds of thousands or anything crazy. But literally, you saw our rankings in Google go up and our Spotify rankings go up off the back of it almost immediately. So it doesn't take a huge amount of advocacy to make a big difference from that point of view. So the other thing I'd say is guerrilla marketing, like coming up with some wild things that you can do, which is kind of PR over again to some extent, but like coming up with a stunt or something that gets lots of people talking about it can be a good way of doing it as well.
Did you see the guerrilla marketing for the new Smile movie?
No.
So they basically sent a bunch of people out into public in like high profile areas.
See, this is a horror movie, isn't it? And it's going to be creepy.
Yeah, so I think it was at like a baseball match or something that they knew it was being streamed on TV,
So
and
people with crazy smiles on their faces.
They'd bought 2 seats like right behind where the TV was, and they didn't have like anything on their face, but they were just smiling at people in a really scary way, and they didn't break character for like hours, and everyone on TV was like, "Oh my god, what's going on?" But it obviously got loads of people talking about
Clever,
it.
right? Yeah, clever.
As a student, I learned if you just smile when you're on the underground, it clears the space and you can sit down.
I think that might have been you drinking your pint of milk, but that's another entirely story as well.
We're not going there. We are going there. Okay,
well,
go on, go there.
You're
going to have to now, otherwise they think I'm really weird, as opposed to just thinking I'm weird.
I don't think that's going to help if I do explain it. But Kieran, when he's cold on a nice hot day, he likes to drink like a carton of milk.
When I'm hot, like cold milk is great. I grew up on it.
Yeah, and everyone gets a bit of that man's drinking. It's like eating sliced meat out of a packet on the train. It's one of those things that gives people the hick a little bit.
It's a big social faux pas I learned.
No one likes public.
Yeah, drinking milk out of a carton in public is a social, like, don't go near this guy.
Oh, you do it in public?
Yeah, on the train, sitting on the train, drinking a carton of milk.
Let's get this in context.
All the time, every day.
I did it once, and I told Daniel the story because I thought it was really remarkable. And Daniel was like, "Well, yeah, no brainer, of course. That's really weird." Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably move out the way.
Yeah.
The thing is, right, and I don't get this, but why is milk cheaper than water? Like, it's more expensive but the water is more expensive than milk. It makes no sense to me at all.
I agree. Let's not get into supply chain. That's just a totally different podcast.
I'm trying to justify drinking milk on a hot day.
I understand. It's okay.
It's not helping me, is it? Really?
Email is another one, right? So we've gone on about email, how fantastic email can be, and still it needs to be a really big part of your strategy. You can attribute email a lot better because of the fact that actually you will see the clicks and you'll be able to kind of channel it, and you've got that two-way communication. So using your social to drive email subscribers is a really powerful tactic. We mentioned it a few times, but I think there's an opportunity in there to do this and to get a little bit more attribution as well. So what we're really looking to do is just influence future behavior. And I think this is where Rand was talking about, because it connects up to his sales message, which is actually SparkToro. If you go to SparkToro and say, I want people interested in digital marketing, it will tell you the YouTube channels, the Reddit groups, the podcast, the websites, the social influencers they're following. That's where you need your stuff. You need it in those channels, so they're coming across it, and then that's going to drive the behavioral change as well. So I think I kind of like this because it stops lazy marketing, because it's just like, well, I'm just going to put a load of money into paid stuff, and I'm not going to be creative. I'm not going to be journalistic. I'm not going to be, exceptional in my content quality. So is content marketing dead? No, of course it's not. Great content will always be great content. And actually, I need to look at how much we're consuming in social media and so on. But I do think the current way of doing it is quite often broken. And you only need to go back to that Neil Patel quote that we picked up at Inbound, like 65% of content gets 0 engagement. So
there's a lot of noise now about AI slop as well, isn't it? This is like a new phrase that's come into my world recently. And it's like, you start to see it everywhere, actually.
And it just is too easy to create the content. And it was always the case that if you could pump content out, people would do it. And Google's having to get smarter and smarter to it as well. So what's the message from all this? Take a step back and actually go through and think, right, what could I do that's really going to have an impact? Can I be in those places where my target audience is? What's going to resonate with them? What can I create that is exceptional? I still think that 10x is a great way of thinking about that. But you've got to be in the right place, and you might not be able to attribute it, but you should see results.
Newsflash, it's always been like this.
Yeah.
Always, since marketing began.
Yeah.
Like, you have to stand out in some way. Like, you have to be relevant. You have to still be able to help people or solve their problems.
So just the finishing point. We have got these masterclasses that are now part of the Target Internet membership. And we have got one coming up on content strategy. So we have a content marketing and content strategy one coming up. We've got a digital strategy one. I think literally next week, we've got a ChatGPT one.
Yes, Monday. So be quick.
Yeah, exactly. So if you go to targetinternet.com, you sign up for a 6 or a 12-month membership. Now, if you do a monthly membership, you do get access, but not until you've been a member for 6 months. So you can come and sign up for those. You then can go into the timetable. You've got all of the forward, and you can just book in to whatever you want to book into. Unlimited amount of masterclasses you can attend as they're on every month. Plus, you've got all the normal content, 200 bits of e-learning that's updated constantly. The only place you can get all 400 of the podcasts are news updates and all that kind of good stuff as well. If you don't want to do that, just sign up to the newsletter, targetinternet.com/newsletter. And that's where we put out loads of exclusive stuff that you can get access to as well.
There's also, just on the topic, our live session for November is on content marketing. So if you just wanted to get further insight.
Yeah, so these live sessions are quick 1 hour bite-sized sessions. So you can dip in, get the latest trends, but also ask questions. So they are two ways. So it's a really good opportunity. If you've got a particular content marketing challenge, you can jump into those as well.
And you never know, if you pick the right one, I might turn up and start handing out free virtual cartons of milk.
Well, that's going to put people off. Cheers, Kieran.
Now we're going to get no attendees.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks. I'll tell you what, maybe you're going to tend to give out some Target Internet merchandise.
Yeah. All right, We'll do that. Let's do that. Right.
We'll get you along to the next one then. So I think what we're going to try to do as well is do a few of these where we get all three of us on. So if you want to pick our brains live, we can do that. But generally, the masterclasses are me, by the way. So if you want to come along, you can have a chat with me on that as well. So as ever, thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Podcast. We will speak to you next time. For more episodes, resources, to leave a review, or to get in contact, go to targetinternet.com/podcast.